Hi there, Erin Koss, CEO at Site Consulting Group with you here today. Hey, it's time, indeed it is. It is 2023 planning season, and our clients are starting to ask us about the big initiatives they have on the agenda for next year. How much do they cost? How much time will they take? And so today I want to talk a little bit about what that looks like when it comes to ERP for manufacturing companies. Our family-owned manufacturing clients spend a good part of the fall planning for these large initiatives next year, and when ERP is on the table, we have conversations with them about how to think about that. A lot of times what happens is the focus is on the cost and time required to do just the implementation. And the reality of it is there's a lot of things that have to happen up front to make sure you're ready for that big important change initiative. And so today I wanted to share some resources with you if you're putting ERP into your budget and planning for next year, some of the things you want to think about when you're doing that. And so some of the resources I want to share today I think will help guide that conversation, and we'll also make sure that we share these resources with you in the notes that we provide today with the video. So wanted to just start by saying, hey, there's a framework for this that we think about, right? So you're looking at implementation possibly next year. And the reality of it is you need to think about the people, the processes, and the technology that are going to be necessary when you get to that place. And there's a lot of planning that goes into that. And so let's talk about that a little bit today. When we talk about getting to implementation success, we talk about three things that have to happen first. Measuring at a strategic level, assessing at a more tactical level, and then selecting the solution that is going to be the right fit for your business. And all of these phases build on one another to get you to the implementation starting gate in the most effective way, and truthfully in the most cost-effective way as well. One of the things we see is companies jump right to the implementation phase, and when you skip these other phases, you end up paying for it when you get here in the form of delayed timelines and additional costs. And we also like to talk about the fact that there can be a real significant wear and tear on your people when the delays happen as well. These are big projects. Implementation takes a lot of time and effort. And when you burn people out just getting there, it can be really painful. So we try and follow a really structured framework and share this with our clients so that they can get to the implementation starting gate the most efficiently. So when we talk about measuring, what we're talking about really is a strategic process of looking at what do you have at a strategic level in terms of readiness. Does the executive team understand the effort they're taking on and how much it's going to take in terms of people? It's a people, process, and technology conversation at this point, but the biggest thing we talk about here is people. Do you have the capacity and the capabilities to take on what it is you're getting ready to take on? Because it can really impact your budget if, in fact, you don't have the people you need in-house. You may need to hire an additional business analyst. You may need to hire outside consulting to do project management or do some of the analysis work or some of the technical work that maybe you're not ready to do and don't have the resources to do and may not need long term. So we have a lot of conversations strategically with the executive team at this point about how to think about particularly people, and then we move into process and technology as we go. So I wanted to share a couple of resources with you here that might be helpful. Just some resources about how to think about the types of resources you might need and how to choose them. So we talk about whether you need to backfill, whether you need to outsource, or maybe hire. And this has a lot to do with how your company is structured today, what your goals are in the future. And so we'll share this important resource with you as a way to think about which resources you might need. But we do talk a lot about the idea of outsourcing being a good play when, in fact, there are resources you don't need long term. And usually we find that there is the need to hire one or two resources that you probably don't have today, maybe on the technical side, but probably on the analyst side, where you're going to just need to do some things in the future that you don't need to necessarily do now. Or when you take on a new ERP solution, the need for more, you're going to have the tools you need for more analysis and more business intelligence tools and opportunities as well. And that's a different kind of person than you might have today, both in terms of capacity and capability. So encourage you to read through these slides, particularly starting here, and then moving into the capabilities and capacity requirements. One of the things we like to do is help our executives understand what roles are going to be necessary for implementation. It's not insignificant. So we talk here in this slide about what roles are needed and what capabilities do they need to have. How much time do they need? This is during implementation. And do they tend to be internal or external? So encourage you to sit down with your executive team, other leaders, and look at this a little bit and think about what might you need in terms of capabilities and capacity relative to what you have today. And this is some more detail that might help you with that conversation. Lastly, this is a slide that we like to share with our clients, which is helping them through the actual gap analysis. You have this kind of capacity, you need this kind of capacity, where are your gaps? It's a pretty simple exercise for sure, and it's one that oftentimes isn't looked at thoroughly enough and can really impact the costs that you take on during the implementation. So those are just some resources as you think about it at a high level strategic perspective. Mostly it's a people conversation at that point, because that's the thing that's really going to hold an organization back from even getting started. Next, we move on to the assess phase, which really starts to get into a tactical conversation of where is the business process landscape at in your organization? What do you understand about today's current processes? How well do they function? Is there common alignment among what the issues are, what the future requirements might be? We find there typically isn't, and so companies will jump into selecting an ERP without having set the groundwork for or laid the groundwork for the requirements for their business. And so they will bring in solution partners to basically do a dog and pony show and tell them what they need. And the trouble is we find more failed selections and stalled implementations as a result when companies don't take a formal process for selecting ERP software. And you can't do that if you haven't assessed where the processes are today, what the issues are around them, and get alignment on what you need in the future. And so one of the things we do during this step is to gather all the subject matter experts, the people who are experts in your business, and have conversations and map out processes for what you have today, and identify as we go, what do you need for tomorrow? So one of the deliverables that comes out of here tends to be this, here's an example of some of the business process mapping that you might see as a deliverable from this phase. What's really great about this particular exercise that we love is not only do you get to understand what's happening today, the issues, and set the stage for requirements as we talked about, but you get this really lovely alignment cross-functionally among people who are part of any key business process, like procure to pay, like order to cash, like manufacturing. You start bringing those folks together who you think might have a common understanding up and downstream of the work that they do and rely on one another for. And we often find that they just don't. They're so busy doing their day jobs, they rarely take the time to recognize fully what's going on up and downstream. And it gives people a really fresh perspective, we find. It also sets the stage for selection and implementation. When you get to the implementation phase, the information gathered during the assess phase is so important, because when the solution providers come in and start asking you questions about how about this and how about that, how do you do this, what do you want, we've already got it all documented and queued up. And most importantly, your people have had these conversations already, so they're not being blindsided by it. They know it's coming. Everybody's already been talking about it, so we're really queued up for implementation success based on the time we took during the assess time frame, during the assess phase, to document the business processes, the issues, and their requirements. One of the other things we talk about during the assess phase is technology. So these are some of the components that we talk about during the technology readiness. And I've created a link here that'll send you out to our ERP readiness assessment, where this Q&A is in more detail, as well as some other conversations that we've talked about already surrounding people and process. A little deeper dive can be found in the ERP assessment. But I want to just give you a snapshot here of, hey, during the assess phase, you want to be looking at where's your technology platforms, technology, hardware, disaster recovery, etc. today. Where is it you think it's going tomorrow? Is it moving to the cloud? What kind of resources will have to change because of the changes in platform for you? Next, we get to the select phase. So you've laid the groundwork, right? You know what you're going to need for people. You understand your technology environment. You understand where your business processes are and where your gaps are in all of those areas. You understand your requirement set a little bit better, and now you're ready to do a deep dive on those requirements. Fill them out completely. What are your vendor requirements? What are your technology requirements? What are your functional requirements? Again, that stage has been set, and we put a fine point on them during this phase, and we start really looking at solution partners for implementation. And this is that process whereby you take control of the solution that you choose because it's driven by your requirements. Again, it's not driven by the dog and pony show of solution providers that, of course, are biased toward their own product. So we guide you through that process, get you to the other side where you have a selection of a solution that is meant for you and your business. Finally, there's implementation. The stage has been set, the solution has been selected, and now you're looking at the real work and the real budget effort, right? So you come out of selection, and the selection will drive the numbers for implementation. So we're setting the stage for it as we go. We're getting some high-level numbers as we go in the measure and assess and select phase. But when we come out of select, we at that point will have the hard numbers we need for implementation. Now, the good news is if you're going into the planning cycle for 2023 and you haven't gone through the first 3 phases, we've done this enough times where we can help you estimate what it would take to implement a particular solution or a solution for a company of your size. So we can get those numbers in place for you so that you've got them for planning purposes. Lastly, I wanted to share this slide because this is a question we get really, really often from our clients. And how much time should I plan? And like I said, the time that you spend in measure, assess, and select will be time saved in the implementation phase. We've seen companies jump right to implementation, and their implementations stall out for as much as 2 years before they have to backpedal. Worst case, select new software. Best case, go back and do some of these early steps to set the stage for proper implementation planning. And that is costly, and it's time consuming, and it's really demoralizing for a core team who's working really hard and is geared up to implement. So just wanted to share, this is some of the time frame you can expect over here. Here's some of the expectations from your team, and just the estimated number of hours required by possibly our team as well. So there you have it. All 4 phases of a successful framework for getting to implementation. So if you're planning for and trying to budget for 2023, we really encourage you to follow a structured framework to get you there from a process perspective. Make sure you're looking at your people, your process, and technology in graduating steps as you move through a framework like this. And ultimately, you'll get to a place where not only are you set up for implementation success in the end, but you'll also have the costs and an understanding of the capacity and capabilities that you need going into the next year, so your budget will be ready to go as well. If we can help you at all in this process, we would certainly love to. Feel free to reach out anytime and give me a call. My contact information will be in the notes. Have a great day. Take care.